try to unite forces at every level and bring this scourge to an end under her leadership. So if I could ask my colleagues very quickly to join me at the podium, we want to present our own resolution that today, June the 28th, in the city of Boston is Prostate Cancer Awareness Day, and we want to congratulate Dr. Stern and AdMeTech for their wonderful work in this effort. Thank you so much.
If I can please have my slides. What most people do not know is that prostate cancer is even more common than breast cancer. And yet, if we look at national investment in research, we will see at NCI, annual investment of research funding at about $300 million for prostate cancer and over $600 million for breast cancer, with a similar pattern of about prostate cancer lagging behind about 50% in the Department of Defense. And yet, similar to breast cancer, prostate cancer is curable when detected early. However, what do we have today for men with prostate cancer? We have PSA testing and digital exam, as it was mentioned. And only this year, in January, we had a study published by at the Journal of the National Cancer Institute that demonstrated, that questioned the value of PSA in saving lives, but emphasized the significant extent of unnecessary biopsies and treatment. Study in Europe, published in New England Journal of Medicine in March, demonstrated unequivocally that PSA saves life in about 21% of men, but also expressed concern about unnecessary biopsies and treatment. Unfortunately, only a few weeks ago, USPSTF government panel, issued recommendation against PSA screening. It's a very similar recommendation to American Cancer Society issued a couple of years ago in March 2010. The question we have is PSA to blame? If we look at the spectrum of screening tools for cancer or any other diseases for that matter, we will learn that PSA is one of the best screening tools for any disease we have today. For example, before PSA invention, before 1985, over 96% of men presented with advanced prostate cancer, and there isn't much we can do for this man. After PSA invention today, over 96% of men present with early prostate cancer, which is curable. If we look at 5-year survival without clinical trials, if we look simply at the database published on NCI website, we will see that 5-year survival after PSA invention is close to 99% today. Before PSA invention, 5-year survival was around 75%. We are saving at least 25% of men at 5 years after diagnosis. And yet, even today, when prostate cancer is diagnosed late, only 28, 29 men are alive at 5 years after diagnosis, with all the advances we've had in treatment. Clinical trial that was published by some of the key leading academic institutions in urology, Memorial Sloan Kettering, Cleveland Clinic, and many others, had concluded unequivocally, this study was done in over 25,000 men. It concluded unequivocally that problem is not with PSA, problem with lack of diagnostic tools and lack of confidence in current diagnostic tools to determine extent and stage of prostate cancer accurately. And physicians are concerned about underestimation of threat of prostate cancer, which drives unnecessary treatment. They also concluded that improved biomarkers and imaging technologies will put an end to this problem. Thus, we are very pleased by the leadership of Congress. As I mentioned yesterday, Senator Boxer and Representative Cummings led introduction of bipartisan legislation, Prostate Cancer Detection, Research and Education Act. Only 2 weeks ago, it calls for investment of $180 million over 5 years in research to advance exactly what clinical trial of 1 year ago demonstrated needed to be done, advanced biomarkers and imaging. As Senator Kerry mentioned, 2 weeks before, he introduced legislation focused on the critical importance of research to advance diagnostic tools for early detection treatment in African American men, who are 250% more likely to die for prostate cancer and 60% more likely to be stricken by it. Senator Boxer Cummings' legislation calls for true transformative approach to development of accurate diagnostic tools for screening, detection, treatment planning in prostate cancer. It proposes to establish an advisory council that will develop and execute a comprehensive plan for development of accurate diagnostic tools. It calls for $150 million in research to advance imaging and biomarkers, and it calls for $25 million in prostate cancer awareness and education with specific need to address why African American men are impacted so disproportionately. As I mentioned at the beginning, we all would invite you to sign a petition to US Congress in support of this legislation. In your program, you have a letter, individual letter, that you can sign and leave at the registration desk, or you can sign a group petition available also at the registration desk. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like you again to consider signing our petition before you leave today. David, please.
And now I'm honored to introduce chairs of the Joint Public Health Committee, Senator Susan Fargo and Representative Jeffrey Sanchez. Senator Fargo. Do you know what? That's a good idea here. Do you know, this is not going to reach.
It's nice to see you all here today. This is such an important issue.
Inspiring is a word that we throw around too often, but that was inspiring. Thank you, Senator. Representative Sanchez? Thank you.
Again, another round of applause for my colleague, Senator Susan Fargo, who throughout this entire endeavor, throughout this entire journey that she took in these past 2 years, she never missed a day with us in the committee. She never missed a day to pick up the phone and express her concerns relative to prevention as a whole for residents of this Commonwealth. So the decision that came from the Supreme Court today is a really big deal for us because it's an affirmation that the way to handle these horrible diseases is through prevention, it's through the advocacy for wellness, and that's why all of us are here today. I'm happy to see people from my community, the Whittier Street Health Center,